Hey folks, Matt Sharp here with another Pacific Angler Friday Fishing Report. We are filming for January 24th, so if it's nowhere near January 24th, click up here. This is a link to all our Friday Fishing Reports, and we do it every week, so I've probably got something more up to date for you. This week, we have some big news from the Vedder Chilliwack area. The Go Fish BC in the province met with the boys and the hatchery, and there's a few changes. First, at sort of a 50-foot level of what's going on right now. We're going to talk about what's going on with the broodstock guys as well as the numbers that they're seeing. But more at a 1,000-foot level, there's some proposals, or at least some ideas on the board for some big changes to possible regulation increases on limit numbers, as well as maybe some closed areas. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the report, so you're going to want to stay tuned. I've also obviously got our weather update. We got another interesting one this week. We had massive snow last week and we predicted really good fishing as things warmed up. That did happen. We had excellent fishing this week on both the Chilliwack as well as the Squamish. We're going to look at those numbers and why they were good, and then we're also going to look at the rain that's coming because there might be some problems on the horizon if you're trying to get out this weekend. But we're going to look at all the numbers, look at some stuff for you guys to run off if you're trying to get out fishing this weekend. On the saltwater front, we don't have much updates. We haven't had a lot of boats out there, but I do have a cautionary warning. I want you guys to get down and check your boats. It's really important after a crazy snowstorm plus rain that we're seeing right now. I'm going to talk about that for you saltwater guys as well. On the fly tying front, Zach has a cool fly this week. It's a classic. You probably look at it and go, oh, I've seen that pattern 1,000 times before. But it's a tweak on a very classic pattern, specifically with a material that he's using in it. Now, the pattern is a bonefish pattern. So if anyone's going out to a bonefish trip this winter, or loves warm water fishing in general, you might want to check it out. And it's how he built the wing with a material that we've been using that I really think revolutionized the simple bonefish pattern, at least on the wing side of things, like a Crazy Charlie or a Gotcha, that style of pattern. So make sure you check that out as well. Well guys, if you want to see more reports like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hit that like button. Let's get into the Friday Fishing Report. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in with me. We've got another interesting week on the weather front. I wish the guys could make it easy, or the fishing gods could make it easy for us, but it doesn't look like they're going to. Last week, we predicted that we'd see a warming trend, and when that warming trend kicked in, we figured there'd be really good fishing. We weren't off on our prediction. The reports we saw from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were excellent. I wish it had come earlier. I predicted it coming Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. It came Monday. So a lot of the guys missed out on the weekend. The Squamish stayed really, really low all weekend, Saturday, Sunday last week, and wasn't good fishing. The Vedder, funnily enough, got dirty on the weekend, and we didn't really see that one coming, but both rivers fished beautifully Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we had excellent reports off them. As we stand right now, Thursday night, I'm burning the midnight oil, so it's a little late here, but as it stands right now, looking at the river levels from what we heard from reports today, river levels were still in good shape, but there's more rain coming and things are rising as we're writing these reports. So when I pull it up here, we'll look at Vancouver and you can see that rain coming. We've got 15 to 20 Friday as you guys are going to be watching this. But more importantly, let's throw it out to Chilliwack and see where they're going. And so it just updated there for me. Let's scroll down here. And I've got, again, Friday 15 to 20 as well as 10 on Saturday, and then another dump 25 to 35 on Sunday. I'm hopeful that there still should be really good conditions. I like colored water, but blown out water is no good. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on it. It might blow out this weekend and make things really challenging for you on the Chilliwack River. On the Squamish side of things, so here she is, and she's getting a similar fairly substantial dump over the weekend. So we've got 20 to 25 Friday, we've got 15 to 20 Saturday, and then 40 to 50 on Sunday. that's going to cause problems, and we can tell that by when we look at the real-time hydrometrics. And this is the Squamish right now, and you can see this was the weekend. We're at like 1.8. This was tough, very clear, very low fishing, and then boom, we had that warming trend that we predicted. Like I said, I wish it had come a touch earlier, but it jumped us up to a 2.6 on Monday. Perfect conditions, good fishing conditions. And then you can see it jumped up to 2.8 on Tuesday, even better. And now you see we're pushing up towards 3 as we're doing this report. It'll be interesting to see what happens if it pushes farther through. My prediction for the Squamish, and again, I'm planning on trying to get out Saturday, is if we see sort of 2.8 to 3.1, it's still go time. It could be excellent fishing. If it goes 3.3, I'm a little bit worried. 3.5, quite worried. 4 on the scale when it hits sort of, well, that's 3. You guys know where 4 is. It's a no-go. Stay at home, tie some flies, hang out, get gear ready, tie leaderboards, that kind of thing. So watch it closely, but use those numbers to gauge it. And that's a great level if it holds and doesn't blow out. So keep a close eye on it. When we roll out to the Vedder, you can see it's spiking right now as well. And funnily enough, there was some dirty water on the weekend sort of up in here, I want to say in here, and that surprised us a little bit and made for some challenging fishing. But when it cleared up just a little bit, it was excellent. So with both systems, you're going to want to upsize your presentations, and it doesn't matter how you're fishing, whether you're fly fishing or gear fishing. For the gear fishermen, it's going to be big pink rubber worms, large gobs of roe with accents on them to show up in colored water. You might throw Colorado blades as well. I don't always throw Colorado blades this early. I tend to lean them till the back end of the season, but it's not a bad idea to have it in the kit. A big flashy Colorado blade might trigger a reaction from a bull trout up the Squamish way or a steelhead up the Vedder way. On the fly fishing side of things, it means big streamers. Throw big white streamers, big pink streamers, big black and blue streamers, depending if you're looking at bull trout or steelhead. And then the egg guys should have excellent fishing if there's enough clarity for the fish to see and they don't get scared and bunker down, but you will want to up your colors on your beads or your egg ties, meaning brighter colors, larger beads, and so make sure those are all in the kit. You'd hate to show up there with just pale colored eggs or small presentations in a dirty water condition. Okay, so that's the river conditions stuff. On the saltwater front, we have not had any boats out. I'm not going to lie. We've been running around trying to get boats fixed. This was all scheduled maintenance, and thank gosh we were down there, because obviously the amount of snow that happened plus the warming trend put a lot of water on a lot of boats. We saw a couple boats, not ours, thank gosh, who had major problems. It's actually quite funny. You look over here, and on the back of my desk, I'll just zoom over here, I've got bilge pumps coming up the yin-yang. We've got, Jay must have dropped them off last night. He's been redoing a bunch of bilges, making sure they're running correctly, making sure batteries are working correctly to clear that melting water out of your boats. So the big one for you guys this week, if you're a saltwater fisherman, bite the bullet, get down to your boat, or at least call someone that's around their boat that can check on it. If you are moored on water, and check those things out. It can be a very simple frozen scupper or jammed bilge pump or blown battery that makes a big problem. So do yourself the peace of mind. Make a phone call, get on the boat, go, head down to the docks for a couple hours this weekend and just make sure everything is good. It'll allow you to breathe a sigh of relief. So off the saltwater side of things, I'm going to have more saltwater stuff for you guys soon. It's one that we just need to get back out on the water and get you guys some more reports. So don't tune out if you guys are saltwater fishermen. I will have news soon. So on the fly tying side of things, Zach had a fly this week, and it's on the Crazy Charlie. Now, most of you that are fly tiers, maybe you're warm water anglers, know this pattern and might be a little bored by the simple factor of this fly. It's a classic. It's been around for years. It is a mainstay in a bonefish box. If you're new to bone fishing or new to tying warm water patterns, This is a staple, meaning you're going to tie it in the colors that are appropriate to the location you're going to, but you can't go wrong with this style of pattern. That said, in this video, Zach does something a little bit differently. He uses a wing material that is not as common in the standard bonefish material, or sorry, standard bonefish fly, and that is coyote. It is a really cool material because it has a ton of the soft properties that rabbit have, but it's a little bit stiffer and it's a little bit longer, so it can build a nice wing. And this is great for shrimp patterns. This is great for mantis patterns. Mantis are a shrimp as well, but you get where I'm going with this. Small shrimp, big shrimp, as well as a lot of the other crustaceans that you use for bonefish patterns, and you can even adapt it into our sculpin patterns here. It's a really cool wing material and something to look at. It comes in a tail version, which are much longer strands, and then it comes in a body version. We sell both at the shop. Skeena Riverfly, these guys are awesome. Check them out. But this material is a game changer for tying wings. Shout out as well to Dennis from the Fly Box. He showed us this material, and it's a really cool way to do wing patterns. So check that out. I'm going to leave links up here as well in the description below. Even if you know the pattern, it's worth 5 seconds. Zach does a really good job of it. Okay, now I know a lot of you might have tuned in specifically for the Vedder River update, or more importantly, the Vedder Chilliwack update. I have a friend who works in the Vedder Hatchery. He's asked to be unnamed. I went to high school with him. He's a hardcore angler, loves steelhead fishing, but he's also a biologist and really understands what's going on the hatchery side of things. Now, when it comes to steelhead, they're a little bit different than salmon in how they're managed. They're managed by Go Fish BC as well as the province. And so they mandate a lot of what goes on the Vedder Hatchery when it comes to production of hatchery steelhead, as well as how they just maintain the entire fishery. Now, historically, they produce 125,000 smolts. These are 80-gram smolts that go out in May. They put these smolts in Peach Road, like below Vedder Crossing. Sometimes every year it's a little bit different, but below Vedder Crossing is the usual spot. And they put them there so there's less likelihood that they compete with wild fish that would move up, meaning that they put the smolts there, they're hoping that when the adults come back, they are going to stay down there, as well as the smolts maybe not competing with the wild smolts in the upper when they're young. It's just a way that they can divide them a little bit. Now, before we go much further on the hatchery debate, you guys need to check out the video that was done by the Steelhead Society, and I'm going to link that up here. This is the biology piece that was done first on the wonderful diversity that are of genetics that steelhead have, as well as some of the concerns about limiting genetic diversity courtesy of hatcheries. Now, my friend works in the hatchery, but he also appreciates the science behind both sides of this coin, and some stuff that has happened with that in mind. The first one is that they are concerned, both the province and Go Fish BC, that we're seeing a downward trend in steelhead numbers. Go figure. I mean, we've all known that. We've all seen that over the last decade, and we've seen it on pretty much every system. That lowering trend is a major concern because if they're producing the same amount of hatchery fish, the competition on the wild fish is disproportionate. Sorry, big word, bear with me here. So what they're going to do is they're really worried about that wild stock on the Vedder, and they're actually going to reduce the number of fish they take for broodstock this year. Not a big reduction. They're reducing it from 35 pairs, which it has been for a few years, down to 30 pairs this year. Now the theory there is that means they can take less wild fish out of the system, meaning 10 more fish, maybe a few more depending on how you look at it, will get to stay in the system, be wild, hopefully reproduce in a wild fashion to maintain some of that genetic diversity. They're still going to shoot for 125,000 smolts coming out of the hatchery, and the way they're going to do it is they're going to try to select larger steelhead for that 30 broodstock. Historically, they've taken some small fish, which haven't produced as many eggs, but this year they're going to try to take slightly larger fish for that 30 and use that to make up the 125,000 smolts that they plan to release in May. Now, those are minor changes. They're being very cautious about what they do. The mandate they get from the province and Go Fish BC is a very careful mandate. For better or for worse, I feel it's better to be careful in this instance. But on the management side of things, there is obviously more concern about the mixing of wild fish and hatchery fish, and the thought that we really want to get those hatchery fish out of the system so they do not delude the genetics of a decreasing population of wild fish. And so there's some proposals out there, some interesting ones. Some that aren't all good, but some that aren't all bad either. The first one is that they're proposing an increase in the hatchery limit from 1 to 2. Now, guys, everything I say going forward is just on the board. It's not endorsed by the hatchery. It's not endorsed by the province, nor is it endorsed by Go Fish BC. These are just things that they're talking about, and they're openly talking about them, meaning I'm allowed to tell you guys about them. So that first one is they might want to increase to 2 hatchery fish. The thing that they've seen is a lot of anglers, because we love fishing, we're going out there for the fishing experience. If in the first 20 minutes of our day we catch a hatchery fish, a lot of guys will release it. I've been guilty of that. I've released hatchery fish early in the day just because maybe that's not what I'm out there for. What they're really encouraging us to do is to keep those hatchery fish. Now, right now, this year, nothing's changed. You take a hatchery fish, you have to stop fishing. But there's a proposal for next year where if you kept that hatchery fish, you could continue fishing because you'd be allowed 2 hatchery fish. To me, that sounds right. Leave it in the comments below, guys, if you guys think otherwise or you guys have other theories to that. Keep it respectful, and I would appreciate it if you do your homework. I mean, watch that video that the Steelhead Society put out so you guys are educated on the issues of wild fish versus hatchery fish. The other proposal is they're considering some closed areas on the Vedder. Not closed for the entire season, but specifically closed in times when they think the wild fish, or just steelhead in general, will be there, so we can minimize the impact on the wild fish. Those areas are being discussed above the Tamahai Bridge. And the reason for that is they've done a bunch of studies in the very last little bit, meaning they started doing snorkel studies on these fish. And they're seeing that a lot of them live in that, specifically a lot of the wild fish. Now, that's not solid data yet, and that leads me to the last thing that we're going to see changing, at least in the near future on the Vedder, and that is a dedication to get better numbers. I think that's something we can all agree on, doesn't matter which side of the argument you're on. We need better science to understand what's going on here. And historically, we haven't had very good science. You guys might have seen numbers like 4,000 fish or 6,000 fish. But when you look at those numbers specifically, it's done by some people doing hard work trying to get data. And my hat is off to all the people that have been trying to get those numbers. But it's very hard to make those numbers precise because they are based on basically creel samples and some limited observations. They're stepping up the observations specifically with snorkel runs down the river. They did it last year. They had some good data off that. They're hoping to increase those snorkel swims where they can count steelhead. And they're hoping to be able to get a better idea of how many fish are there, where the wild fish are, where the hatchery fish are. And hopefully with that, we'll have some management tools at least to continue the fishery on the Vedder River, but also protect the steelhead themselves on the Vedder River. Well, guys, like I said, leave comments below, be polite, be nice. If you guys got ideas, stuff that you might like them to consider. And I hope that gets you guys more educated on the sort of back and forth that goes behind the scenes at a hatchery. Now, as always, guys, you want to see more fishing reports like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll see you in the next Friday Fishing Report.